Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be installing Bilstein 5100s on our 2012 Nissan Titan. These are going to go on the front, and we'll have to install springs on top of these brand new Bilstein shocks. I got these off of Amazon warehouse. They were a pretty good deal, and they're going to be replacing 10-year-old struts that have approximately 82,000 miles on them. So let's get started. In order to do this job, we're also going to be testing out this new Ryobi 1 Plus HP brushless impact wrench. This new one has the 1,170 foot-pounds. I'm also going to be comparing it to my old Ryobi impact wrench. Also got a bunch of new hardware just in case. But before we get started, I want to take a look at this new impact wrench that I bought. This is about $140, and man, this thing is massive. I got this because it just doesn't have quite enough oomph for my other one to take off some lug nuts and things, and so I just decided to go ahead and get the big boy. One thing you'll notice right off the bat is the size of this thing. It is massive, and with heavy mass also comes heavy weight. I'm not sure that I could use this thing all day long without my arm getting seriously tired. So I'm glad that I have both sizes of impact wrench for the different jobs. But you can see the new one on the right, it is pretty massive compared to the 300 foot-pounds of torque one on the left. All right, that's enough talk about impact wrenches. Let's get started. Go ahead and remove the lug nuts. After you've jacked up the truck a little bit, also remember to use a jack stand. I'm going to go ahead and try this new one out now and see how this works. I'm really excited to try and use it. Seems to spin off the lug nuts really fast. You might have to give your tire a little kick to get it to knock off. This one came off pretty easily. Some don't. Okay, so the first thing we got to do is remove the old strut. And these struts have one big bolt on the bottom, you can see there, and three 14mm bolts on the top. So we're going to go ahead and zip this bolt out here, and then we'll remove the ones on top. If you're thinking to yourself, he's going to pull that bolt out and the suspension's just going to drop. Well, don't be afraid. The anti-sway bar is going to hold it up a little bit. It still will drop a little bit, but it's not going to fall on you, so don't worry. And these are the three 14mm bolts that need to come off. So we'll take those off and drop the strut out. And the thing that I found out that's unbelievable to me is this just slides right out of here. I couldn't believe it. This is one of the easiest strut removals I've ever had to do. Okay, so now you see the old strut we have in the vise here. And don't forget to wear safety glasses for this part, guys. Use a little precaution. We're going to use a 3-piece coil spring compressor, and that provides a little more safety. So you evenly space out these three compression rods on the strut and tighten them down evenly and gently. And then we'll take the top cap off of here. I want to reuse this spring, and we're going to use the top cap piece that has the 3 studs that hold the strut in. So we'll tighten these down evenly and gently in order to get this top cap off of here. So what you just missed was I had to undo this. I didn't have them spaced evenly enough, and it was pulling the spring down at an angle. I wanted to pull the spring straight down, so I had to take the compression rods off and respace them out in a more even fashion. And at this stage here, you don't need to compress the spring a lot, just enough to take the tension off of the cap so that you can take the nut off of the top of the strut, as you see right here in the very top of the screen, and just pop the cap off. So you don't have to tighten the spring significantly. And then I go ahead and remove the spring, and as you'll see here up at the top, broken spring. No new springs to be found anywhere. So now 4 days later, after the springs came from Amazon, these are Moog springs, we can get started again. One thing that I want to do before I put this back together is weigh the old assembly versus the new assembly. And you can see here that the old strut weighs 6 pounds, 11 ounces. And we'll put the Bilstein on here. And this weighs 5 pounds, 14 ounces, which is almost a full pound less than the old strut. And that's primarily because the Bilstein, while it's bigger, it's all aluminum. Now, one of the reasons I got the 5100s is because not only is it all aluminum, but it's adjustable. It's height adjustable. And I wanted to raise the front end of my truck approximately 1 inch. And you see right here is there's 3 grooves with a snap ring that goes in. And each groove raises the front end of your truck about 1 inch over stock. So I used the second snap ring, which should give me about an inch of lift. Plus, with the new springs and the new rubber hardware, I should get a little more than an inch of lift. We'll see how it works out. Now, when I was reassembling this strut, I paid extra close attention to the alignment so that I could get it reassembled in the same manner that it was taken apart for reinstallation. But I found out with these struts it really doesn't matter too much because the base plate is rotatable, so you can spin it to reinstall it. When you need to get the studs back into the strut bucket, you can spin it a little bit. It's stiff, but you can still spin it. So I compressed the spring and put the cap back on. And for the new spring, to get this cap back on, I had to compress this spring a lot, especially with the new rubber hardware that I used. So we're going to get everything buttoned back up here and tighten the nut on the top. You're probably wondering, why are you wearing yellow cleaning gloves? Now, one thing that I found was that the gloves that you buy at the hardware store, the mechanics gloves, they're really thin, they rip easily, and they don't go up far enough on my forearm, so my wrists all get greasy. These are like 99 cents at the dollar store. They don't tear, they last for the full job, and they're just really superior to anything I've ever used. They look silly, but they work really well. So what we're going to do is get this tightened down, and I want to get it tightened just right so I can get the other side done similar. What you'll see here is I forgot a washer, so I needed to take it back off and put it back on. So once you do your stack, make sure you get it all right before you go ahead and take those spring compressors off. So we'll zip this down, and I'll just measure it here with the top of a wrench just to use for the next side. And then we'll back the spring compressors off and get ready for installation. So what you saw is one of the spring compressors fly off. I didn't get hurt, but it could have. So the way you get this back in here is you have to put the bottom of the strut in first and then slide in the top. We'll work out that way. And then the way I did it was I tightened up the nuts on the top of the bucket, the strut bucket, so that I could get it up as high as possible. And what you just see here is me taking some pry bars and twisting the strut around so that it's lined up correctly. And this is kind of nice with that base that rotates, is that you can twist the strut a little bit so you don't have to get the alignment just perfect. This job obviously would be easier with two people, somebody to help you line this up so you can get the bolt in a little easier. But I was able to get it, so it can be done by one person. You will need some sturdy pry bars because it does take some prying to get this strut back aligned so that you can get the bolt in. And roll the tire back in place. As you can see, this truck is due for new tires, and I'll be putting new tires on. I got some Kumho Krugen HT51s that I'm going to be putting on in the next video. Remember to put your lug nuts on in a crisscross pattern, and that's done for this side. And if you care to stick around for the next side, I do have it in very fast speed. What I'm doing right here is measuring. I got about 39¼ inches, and before it was 37½, so I got about 1¾ inch out of the struts and the new hardware, the springs and the rubber hardware. So I'm happy with that. I don't want it to be any higher than about another 1¾ inch. So what I'm going to do here is jack up the other side, and I'll play this in 6x speed so that if you care to see how this side goes, you can watch. This whole process, each side took about an hour and a half to an hour and 15 minutes. So I'd say that if you had all the tools and you had all the hardware, I had to wait 4 days for a new spring to come in. But if you didn't have any broken springs, you could probably get the job done in 4 hours, and that's probably taking one break for water. If you've never compressed a coil spring before, I don't probably need to say this, but this could be kind of dangerous. So tighten this evenly, take your time, don't stick your face in front of it. If something flies off, it's going to fly off probably straight up. But if you just take your time, wear safety glasses, it'll minimize your chances of getting hurt. And as always, if you don't feel comfortable doing this, just take it to a professional. I went ahead and did this because I feel comfortable doing it, but if you feel like you're not capable of doing it, just take it to a professional. So I will tell you at this point in the video, while you're watching me reassemble the second strut, is these ride very nice. After I got the truck finished, I took it for a spin around the neighborhood, and then I took it on a 20-mile trip up to pick my son up from school. And it rides much better. It doesn't skip on gaps in the pavement. It's a very compliant ride. It's not too stiff. I was worried about it being stiff, The extra height is nice. The truck is more leveled out, and the ride is much better. I wouldn't say it's soft by any means, but the old Struts, even though they weren't really worn out, these Bilsteins are superior in every way to the old Struts. I will say that while I really wanted to do this, put new struts on this truck, I was dreading doing this job. And I contemplated just taking the old struts off and taking them to a spring shop and just having the spring shop put the springs back on the new struts. But I'm glad that I did it myself. It didn't take very long at all. The hardest part was getting the new struts reinstalled and getting the bolt lined up on the bottom. Since the new strut is about an inch and some taller, it required a little prying, as you see here. Would have been maybe a little bit more helpful to have an assistant here, but it can be done. Just take your time, make sure you have pry bars, and it'll work out. Another thing I ought to mention that will help you immensely is good lighting when you're doing this. This area underneath the fender here, underneath the truck, can be kind of dark. So I had to get some lighting just because I'm recording this video and it would be too dark, but use some good lighting. A headlamp works great. Now by the end of this job, I've had the opportunity to use this new Ryobi brushless impact wrench. It's got a lot of torque. 1170 maximum foot-pounds is a lot, but I will say it is heavy. So while I really like this new one, I'm going to be reaching for the old one first, and I won't be using the big one unless I need the extra torque. So I'm going to go ahead and tighten up the three 14mm nuts on top of the strut here. And we'll go ahead and put the tire back on, and that wraps up this job. In the next video, I'm going to get the new tires put on, and I'll show you an overall picture of the stance of the truck with the new tires on. If you found this video helpful and you like this kind of content, please don't forget to like and subscribe. And as always, I will see you in the next one.